Good morning, everybody. My name is Fabian Levy, and I serve as Deputy Mayor for Communications for the City of New York. Today, Mayor Adams has once again convened senior leadership from across our administration to answer your questions and address important issues. We launched these media availabilities with the goal of providing New Yorkers with a cleaner line of sight into the work of city government. And as we enter week 4 of this new forum, that is exactly what we have done and continue to do. We've been able to bring together leaders with decades of experience to answer questions, and we've been able to deliver information in a clear and comprehensive way. We look forward to continuing that process this morning. So joining us today, we have Mayor Eric Adams, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, Chief Advisors to the Mayor Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Chief of Staff Camille Joseph-Arlick, Deputy Mayor for Operations Mayor Joshi, Deputy Mayor for Housing, Economic Development, and Workforce Maria Torres-Springer, Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services Ann Williams-Isom, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Phil Banks, Deputy Mayor for Strategic Initiatives, Anna Almanzar, and Chief Counsel, Lisa Zornberg. So without further delay, I'm pleased to turn it over to Mayor Adams.
Thanks so much, DM Levy. It's clear we're in, 22 months of this administration. We inherited a city. At the time we came into office, we were coming through the pandemic. Crime was soaring in the wrong direction. We were having real challenges of getting people back on our subway system. We were having a real employment problem, jobs, tourism. Everywhere you looked, it appears as though we were moving in the wrong way. Many people stated that it was going to take 5 years to really get the city back in the right direction. Well, we did not believe that when we came into office, and we still don't believe that. It's clear, last week, we were proud to announce that the city now has more jobs than it has ever had in its history. Not in this year or last year, but in its history. And really great job by Deputy Mayor Maria Torres-Springer and her team specifically, but the entire team for coming together and creating the elements that we needed to get people back to work. Subway ridership peaking at 4 million riders. We knew we had to make the subway system safe. That's why we put in place the subway safety plan with the governor. I cannot thank her enough for her support during that time. We also knew we had to make government less bureaucratic. And Deputy Mayor Maria Torres-Springer and her team went into every agency and made them do an examination of the challenges that everyday working class people were experiencing, and we changed many of those rules that were really holding back businesses from opening. We have recovered all of the nearly 1 million jobs that we lost during the pandemic. And we have created more than 280,000 private sector jobs during this administration. This is a watershed moment for our city, a clear sign that New York City is not coming back. New York City is back. Every time I'm on Times Square, that's my indicator. When I go out there late at night and watch people walking and enjoying this amazing city. Our plan was clear. We had a triangle offense of people, public space, and public safety. We knew that if we were focused on working class peoples, being able to settle over 85% of our union contracts, people were really amazed what Commissioner Campion was able to do with some of the most difficult contracts, like the ferry boat operators, 13 years waiting. We were able to seal the deal, get it done. Bus operators, did you notice there was no strike? Our children had no interruption in their bus operations because we were able to get it done, because working class people realized they have a working class mayor, and we're going to give them a fair contract. And we did it over the weekend with our supervisors and administrators in the New York City public school. A fair contract, and able to allow them to be able to provide for their families in our city. So our triangle offense is working. Today, we're taking 2 more steps on our Working People's Tour to celebrate the city's comeback with New Yorkers and continue to move it forward. This morning, we highlighted the success of a groundbreaking program that is helping to retain nurses. Nationally, the programs of nurses retention and support. They receive a number about 84%. We're over 96.5%. We know there's a nursing shortage, so we're leaning in to make sure our nurses get the support that they deserve. And later today, we're going to celebrate Pier 94. Really excited about this. Pier 94 Studios, a major new film and TV complex that will create 1,700 jobs and new public space in Manhattan. This is really the triangle offense at work. New Yorkers are feeling safe. Crime is continuously decreasing. Employment and jobs are up. You know, really, that's the math that we clearly love to see over and over again. They're going back to work. They're riding our subways. And I hear it every day when I'm out on the streets, when I'm moving around. People have picked up the signal of the thumbs up and saying, Eric, we know we have a lot to do, but we feel optimistic that we're moving in the right direction. In the midst of the crises, I cannot get any clearer. This administration has been able to move from survival to thriving in the midst of crises. COVID was a pandemic that was an international crisis, and we cycled through that. And now we're dealing with a crisis that has never been witnessed before, a humanitarian crisis of this magnitude in our city. And in spite of that, we continue to move this city forward. And that is what we're going to do. We're not going to focus on the challenging aspects of it only. We're going to come up with solutions and move it forward. Bill Clinton said to me the other day when I had lunch with him, he gave me this smile, and he says, Eric, the city did not elect you to define the problem. They elected you to fix the problem. And that's my job. My job is to fix the problem, and we're going to fix the problems that the city is facing. So again, thanks so much, Deputy Mayor Levy.
Sure. And, you know, since we're talking about the great job numbers, Deputy Mayor Torres Springer, is there anything you wanted to add maybe about some of the
I'd be
great
happy
information?
to, DM Levy. So, good morning, everyone. As the mayor mentioned, last week was a real high water mark in our city's history. And humbly beseech everyone in this room to highlight, it would be fantastic to highlight the resurgence that happened for a number of reasons, but including, of course, the fact that there were many headlines during the height of the pandemic, right, that talked about how the city was dead, that it was doomed. And we stayed focused, no distractions, as the mayor has asked us to do, and just proceeded to grind. And what we got last week was really, in many ways, the fruits of that labor. So let me just share some facts, because I think they're quite staggering and they bode well for the city of New York, even if we, of course, as the mayor mentioned during the press conference, still have work to do. So that's 4.7 million jobs, an all-time job record in the 400-year history of our city. We've recovered close to 1 million jobs that we lost during the pandemic. That number, 965,000, that is essentially the entire population of cities like Austin and San Francisco. We have recovered more jobs than those cities have people. Since the mayor took office, we've added 280,000 private sector jobs. So we've added more jobs in this administration than cities like Buffalo and Jersey City have people. In addition, since the mayor took office, the unemployment rate in the city has gone down by 3 percentage points. The labor force participation rate at 62.6% is really the highest in recorded history, essentially. We are growing at 2.7%. That is higher than New York State, higher than the national average. Our average wages are also going up close to 2 percentage points year over year. And we've added close to 40,000 small businesses since the mayor took office. Essentially what that means is about 1 in 7 small businesses in this city is new. And so those are statistics that really point in the direction of a city that has recovered. As the mayor mentioned last week, we have more work to do in driving down disparities in the unemployment rate and making sure that sectors that have not fully recovered, because many have, from education and healthcare, professional and business services, finance, all of those are at job levels that exceed pre-pandemic. In some other sectors, we have a little bit more wood to chop, but we are in this position, the most jobs in the history of this city, because we've all been partners on the same mission, which is to make sure that we not only recover in the wake of the pandemic, but we really thrive. So happy to talk more about any of the gains in the sectors that continue to fuel our economy.
I like that. No distraction. Stay focused and grind. Remember you said that on the campaign trail, Michael?
Thank you, DM Tor Springer. I think we're all very impressed by your team. Even Dana Rubenstein is very impressed, right, Dana? There you go. Charles, let's go to off topics.
So on the migrants that were moved out of Toro shelter after the FDNY inspection, have they been moved to other shelters? And since this is one of several sites recently given vacate orders, my other question is, why isn't the FDNY brought in before you open these facilities up?
And they are, and I'll let Deputy Mayor Williams Isom, who has been doing just a Herculean job on this, she could go into details because they are. I cannot say this enough. We are out of room, and it's not if people will be sleeping on the streets. It's when. We are at full capacity, and every day the DM and her team, H&H, chief of staff, every day they are getting in new people, and we have no more space for them. And the city has been fortunate in not seeing the visual signs of this crisis, but you're going to start seeing the visual signs of this crisis, like you're seeing in other cities. We are out of room. And the places that we are finding are really temporary locations. They're not meant to house people in. This is what we are faced with. And I don't know how to get this any clearer. When you are out of room, that means you're out of room. You know, every year my relatives show up for Thanksgiving and they want to all sleep at my house. You know, it's no more room. That's where we are right now. We are out of room. Deputy Mayor Williams Isom?
I think the only thing I want to add is that I'm just amazed that we continue to normalize this and that you ask questions about what about this spot or what about that spot and not talk about the fact that it's 130,000 people that have come to New York City so far, and that we literally have 120,000 people that we are caring for. When we started the administration, that was 45,000. And I know that everybody knows that, but I think we have to keep on going back and saying to ourselves, how is it possible that we are still in this place? How is it possible that we don't have a decompression strategy and that we are trying to juggle people from one site to the next? So to answer your question, yeah, there were some sites that needed to get closed because we are trying to make sure that migrants are safe. We are, right? New York City is saying we're caring for 65,000 people, the best that we can. The staff did a great job yesterday at a hearing, and at one of the council people were like, yeah, you're doing okay, but you could be doing more. What more could we be doing? We opened up a legal clinic. We are having 20,000 young people in school. No families and children have been on the street. We keep on asking the state to help us with resettlement. I think they've resettled 20 families. I wish I could say I could stop at 20 families. I can't stay that. Every day we are trying to figure out how do we make sure that people are where they need to be. So my answer is yes, we are moving people to reticketing to see if they want to be reticketed. If they can't be reticketed, we put them in a space where they could wait for availability. Let me just say this. This is why the 60-day and the 30-day notices are so important, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to make space in the system for people who come through the front door.
And you know what, you just made me think of something. Can we do a roundtable, Deputy Mayor, with those who have great ideas that think they know how to solve this problem? Because we know we're doing what other cities aren't doing. And so I'm open to have folks come in the room with their ideas of how they solve having 2,500 people in some days 4,000 a week. And so let's do that. let's bring in all the groups and organizations and tell them to come in prepared to do a working group.
We can definitely do that, but remember the White House has already said that New York City is doing the best practice in this country. We've already seen that Massachusetts is like, I'm going to get up to 7,500 and then I'm going to close my door. We've already seen Chicago go down to the border. So I'm happy to have a round table, but I'm not sure I'm going to see some brand new ideas.
Yeah, I want to try, and maybe, you know, we invite the press in to hear some of these great ideas that people have. And we welcome people from the press who have some better ways we can do that. Right now, New York needs help. All of us are in this together. So some of you who are covering the story that are, you know, asking these questions, if you have some good ideas for us on how to manage the situation, I am begging for your ideas. I want ideas from anywhere on the globe to help us manage an unsustainable problem that has been dropped into the laps of New York City taxpayers.
Mr. Mayor, I want to follow up on the migrant question. I wonder if you can tell us how many of the shelters that you're using now have received vacate orders from the fire department that you're trying in some way to correct so you can use those facilities? And are you worried that the facilities that you're using could have life-threatening problems that you've decided to overlook because you need the space?
No, we were very clear. You could be told that the fire department can tell you that within 30 days you have to correct a problem. You know, no one is going to be placed in a location that has a life-threatening issue. You know, so if the fire department comes in, as in any other place or the department buildings, they say you have X number of days to correct. If you don't correct it, they do a vacate order. If the fire department tells us we have to vacate, we're not going to break the law. We're going to follow the law. And so what we are concerned about is that we're going to run out of places and you're going to start to see people sleeping on the streets.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
yesterday you closed a shelter in Manhattan that had no fire alarms. And for 3 months, you had people living there while you were trying to correct the problem, and finally you realized you couldn't. So that's an example of a situation where the fire department expressed concern about that place, but you still had people living there while you were trying to fix the problem. It had no fire alarm for 3 months, and people were there.
Deputy Mayor Williams,
We had fire guards.
We have fire guards.
Sure.
okay,
Yep.
let the
We
deputy
had
mayor.
mitigating strategies at that location, which the fire department was aware of, including fire guards that were there. When they came back to do their additional inspection, I think as we discussed last week, they gave us an indication of whether or not we could continue to use the location. They said we couldn't, and so we moved those individuals.
So
Every single
understand.
location was opened with the FDNY and the Department of Buildings having come in and done an inspection.
Understand what the DM said. There were no fire alarms, but we had fire guards. We were told that we could use fire guards. Those are human beings that are well-trained, that understands that we're there. So we weren't just saying we're not going to have any fire warning system. There was a system put in place.
Doesn't this point to the problem that you have no space and that you're having to use spaces that are not ideal because you have to find some place to put them, and that a place that is not ideal is better than the street?
You know what? In over 50 years, I never thought I would say this again, but I'm going to say it now. Eureka. This is what we've been trying to say. I mean, what is it going to take before people understand what outer room means? Yes, we're placing people in conditions that are unfair for migrants, and it's unfair for New York City taxpayers. That's what we've been trying to say over and over again, and we're doing it like no other municipality. No other municipality is accomplishing what we have accomplished. But I want to be clear. The visual signs of this crisis in our city, people are going to start to see it.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I had some questions in regards to Tim Pearson. I wanted to know his exact role when it comes to the migrant crisis Does that include unannounced visits to migrant sites? What is he looking for? And does it concern you that when he's making these unannounced visits, it's leading to some physical altercations with security on site? Have you spoken to him about those incidents?
You said leading to physical altercations. Of my knowledge, there was one altercation, unless because that was plural what you said, unless you are talking about more, I'm not aware of them. A part of how I run this administration, you have to inspect what you expect or is all suspect. You used to hear that on the campaign trail too. I have Tim Pearson doing unannounced show up at migrant HERCs shelters to make sure that we are following the rules and to make sure that I'm immediately notified. I'm responsible for these sites. It falls on me, and I need someone to go in and do these visuals and come back to report to me so I can get in contact with either the chief of staff or the deputy mayor or Molly, whomever, to say, I'm told this is happening at this location. Because I started getting reports that people were loitering in hallways. We were having a large number of illegal mopeds at locations. I was starting to get real reports, and I need a quality assurance person that is going to let me know directly, this is what I'm seeing on the ground. That is how I operate. And that is his role, to show up unannounced. Because if you call and say, Eric is on his way to a location, everybody's going to make sure everything is all right. That is not how you do this. A quality assurance person goes in unannounced and do an inspection to make sure that everything is operating accordingly. Are we throwing out too much food? Are we doing things inappropriate or illegal? He brought something to my attention at the Randall's Island site based on one of his observations that I went out last weekend around 1 a.m. in the morning to do my own observation, which turned out to be correct. And we rectified that situation. So that is his role. His role is to go into any and all of these sites. He reports on what he finds in those sites directly to me.
Does it concern you, though, that there was an incident at one of the sites?
And that's under review. That's under review to see exactly what happened and to see if there's some other procedures we need to do. This is part of the whole reviewing process. And this is let's be clear. This is what happens when you are dealing with a crisis of this magnitude. To be able to be, over a year in this and still being able to manage this crisis, and I think the term that the deputy mayor said is so appropriate. We've done this job so well that many of you have normalized this. There's nothing normal about what's happening to this city right now. There's nothing normal about what New Yorkers are experiencing. We have disrupted the lives of New Yorkers, and we have unfairly placed migrant and asylum seekers in situation, and this is a financial crisis that this city is going to experience because of that.
Did you speak to him personally about the incident?
So in the review.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question about the court conference over right to shelter last week. Your administration agreed to court mediation, supervised mediation with legal aid. I know legal aid has solutions that they've been talking about that they said you guys have not been fully on board with, like expanding housing vouchers. I guess what would you like to see going forward at this point through these negotiations?
The Corp Council is handling that. And I say all the time, idealism often collides with realism. Anyone believes that we can just give someone a voucher. We already have a housing crisis in our city. We don't have enough inventory. We're not getting the support that we need, hopefully this year in Albany. But the idea is that people have, build more housing. Okay, that's what we want to do. But if you build more housing, a building doesn't go up in a week. The question that needs to be asked is, what do we do right now? Right now. That's the question that many people don't want to answer. Right now, we're having thousands of people come to the city. What do we do with them right now? I like the long-term stuff that people are talking about, and I'm hoping that everyone goes to Albany with us this year to get the housing that we need, but right now. And so right now, the Corp Council, we have made it clear. 40 years ago, or whatever number of years, this conversation came about right to shelters. There's no way folks are going to tell me that the architects of that right visualized that this city was going to receive over 130-something thousand migrants and asylum seekers to the city. And just think about this for a moment. There's two schools of thought in the city right now. One school of thought states you can come from anywhere on the globe and come to New York, and we are responsible on taxpayers' limited resources to take care of you for as long as you want. Food, shelter, clothing, washing your sheets, everything, medical care, psychological care, for as long as you want. And it's on New York City taxpayers' dime. And then there's another school of thought that we disagree. So that's what you're seeing playing out in the court right now. We just disagree. We agree with overwhelming number of New Yorkers that believe our hearts are huge, but our resources are not endless.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
If I could add, in response to the reporter's question, so the mediation that was ordered by the new judge assigned in the Callahan case has required all three parties to participate in mediation. So that's Legal Aid Society, New York City, and the state of New York. And then to the mayor's point, secondly, when the Callahan consent decree was entered back in 1981, over 40 years ago, that was a settlement agreement that did not determine any legal or factual issue. And as the New York Times reported, the immediate impact of that decree back in 1981 was that the city had to find 125 additional beds, and it further reported that those beds would be found in the Catskills, upstate. So there's a very sharp contrast between the expectations and understandings that went into the settlement agreement over 40 years ago and the situation we're dealing with today.
I noticed you passed over Lisa again.
Thanks for the time, Mr. Mayor. So just, so sticking with the migrant crisis, how successful has the city been in placing work-authorized asylum seekers in jobs? And if you have a number on that, if you could give that to us. Secondly, I'm sure you're aware that the New York City Council held a hearing yesterday on the cost of, what this crisis is weighing on the city. And there is a little bit of criticism on what the city projected in budgeting. Your administration indicated it spent $1.4 billion in fiscal year 2023. In the adopted fiscal year 2024 budget, there was approximately double the amount, $2.9 billion. But in August, your administration released new projections that estimated the cost of care would increase to $4.7 billion, and go up again after that to $6 billion. So I think the question is, why has there been I guess, a discrepancy there. And lastly, a separate topic on housing. The turnaround rate for a vacant night share apartment has more than tripled since your administration has come into office. So it's according to night share reports. We're just wondering why and what might be being done.
Yeah, okay. DM Williams Isom will talk about the course, and DM Maria Torres Springer will go into the night shift conversation, okay?
And also, Maria, you can mention some of the work ideas that we have with the food industry and hospitality and others. So I think it's a very simple answer that the census is driving the cost. Even if we think about cutting costs with food or security or other things that we definitely have been trying to do, when we made our original projections, we had X amount of people that were coming through the front door. And as you can see, with the numbers, those numbers kept on increasing to the point where there were 4,600 people coming into the system. And while I think we're doing a great job with our exits, and so exits is if we're giving people identifications, we're helping people to get connected to family members, we really want people to get resettled other places. But because of the number of the inflow, our inflows are still higher than the amount of people that we're able to get out of the system, and that's what's driving the cost. Also, now that we're 18 months into this, the demand and the supply are bumping up against each other. So we're in certain hotels. People are raising their prices around the hotels. We're trying to find a limited amount of places that are appropriate. So all of those things become more expensive, as you see, as we move along, which is why it's so important to be able to get ourselves and see ourselves through this, which is what can slow down the front door. How can we decompress people into other parts of the United States, frankly? And how do we make sure that we get more support, financial support from the state and resettlement support from the state?
Great. Thank you, DM Ann. So I want to add to what we are doing to make sure that we can leverage our public workforce system for asylum seekers once they have work authorization. Then I'll tackle the NYCHA question. So we have a Workforce One system. It's about 18 different centers across the city, and they are prepared once asylum seekers have work authorization to connect migrants to job training, job opportunities, and other services, because as they have told us, they have told everyone, they're ready to make the contributions to our economy and to our city. We also recently stood up an initiative, including a web portal at nyc.gov/American Dream Works. American Dream Works, where we are taking information both from migrants and from employers. So as DM Ann mentioned, we've been working with many different partners across industries such as hospitality, restaurants, et cetera, so that we can solve the twin challenges of providing work opportunities to migrants, as well as labor shortages in certain sectors. And so we think there's a win-win there, and we've stood up the infrastructure so that the city can continue to do its part in addressing this crisis and really turning it into an opportunity for our economy. In terms of NYCHA, those turnaround times reflect a couple of things. They reflect the fact that, number one, and we have to all remember that a lot of NYCHA units become vacant after decades of being occupied. We're taking this opportunity, given that housing stock, to make really critical investments, repairs, improvements, tackling issues such as lead. And so it's not just that we can't just quickly turn it around without making those quality of life and critical investments. So that is driving some of the numbers. In addition to that, as you might know, we have very robust programs like PACT, for instance, that is allowing us to make generational improvements, because, as we also know, that the capital need at NYCHA is very large. And in the context of those programs, being able to relocate certain tenants into units, that also has been helpful. But let me be very clear that we are, our mission here is to make those improvements and reduce those times. So the new leadership at NYCHA, including Lisa Bova-Hyatt, who was recently appointed as CEO, and Jamie Rubin, the new chair of NYCHA, both appointed in this administration, are focused on those types of improvements, as well as long-term investments that NYCHA desperately needs.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to ask about just to switch topics a little bit, the unfortunate rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in the city since the war abroad started. Also, if we could get an update about the security situation in the city.
The security?
Security.
Well, I think we have to be extremely careful as we deal with the hate that's going on both ends. We spoke with Sikh leaders the other day who were experiencing attacks. One dealt with a vehicle accident. We're still determining if that was hate crime. Then we had the incident on the bus. When you look at some of these videos, They're challenging. And you hear some of the terms that are being used, and we have to be extremely careful. And we have to be careful of how we report this. I thought it was unfortunate that there were preliminary reports that made it appear as though that Israel blew up the hospital in Gaza. I think that sort of feeds into some of the hysteria that we're seeing, because whatever happens on the international level plays out on the streets of New York. The New York City Police Department, with all of the threats that were put out on social media, which I continue to say social media needs to get its act together, with all of those threats, with a large number of protests, D.M. Banks and his team with the commissioner and others give us an update every morning on the number of protests that were taking place. I think Police Commissioner Caban did an amazing job of, number one, having the omnipresence, having all of our officers that are normally assigned to plainclothes assignment in uniform, having those sensitive locations, communicating with our faith leaders in churches and synagogues and mosques, all to go to that, see something, say something, do something, feeling the calls, monitoring of the chatter that's out there, because there's a whole system of monitoring the chatter of what people are saying, of the threats and legitimate threats of, we sat down with the team, sat down with the new head of the FBI in this region to talk about, information sharing, how we're going to operate together. So it's a real challenge, because the big focus and concern, I said to you all last week, are the lone wolves. These are those who can be radicalized, sitting at home, hearing people call out to take action like the former Hamas leader did. That is what we have to focus on. But I think that, the job that the police department did last week, and we continued over the weekend, there were huge protests throughout the city. Managing those protests, I really commend the combination of the entire law enforcement team. Hold on, let her finish. Go ahead.
Are you guys concerned about some of the threats that have been made against New York State officials and council members? State officials and council members here.
Whenever an elected official is receive any threat, Intel gets it. They do a threat assessment, and they make a determination if they're going to have additional personnel or security. And they give them the options, and there are many ways of doing that. And so we're always concerned if someone receives a threat, no matter who it is, but we do communicate and we coordinate with Intel.
Mr. Mayor, in terms of the remote work option for non-union city workers, does that go against what you've said previously about urging as many New Yorkers as possible to work back in their offices?
I'm a big believer, again, I believe office work is crucial. I think that it allows you to, just cross-pollinate ideas. It allows you to, to mentor and be mentored. But it's clear that COVID brought a shift on how people, what they do around work. And I'm not so rigid that, I don't believe you have to adjust. You have to pivot and shift based on the needs. And look, we were unable to give our senior employees and workers pay increases because of this fiscal crisis that we are experiencing. Retaining workers is a challenge. It's a real challenge. And in some areas like IT, law, others, these areas are really challenging. This is a competitive market, and if we can find a way to keep workers by doing things that's not going to cost taxpayers dollars, we're going to continue to do so. And Commissioner Campion has done an amazing job. We rolled this out first with DC 37. We saw some good indicators, and we're going to continue to figure out how do we give benefits to workers, how do we retain them, and how do we do it in a way that's not going to cost taxpayers dollars.
Sure, I think
I
I
would
would
do it
just...
a few more. Yeah, do a few more. Go ahead, do a few more.
Yep, I think I would also add that we have now rolled it out to approximately 24,000 DC 37 employees who are already working two days a week. We're rolling it out to the additional unions that have ratified the contract, and so we are really excited to bring flexibility to the city, to the country's largest municipal workforce.
On the Tim Pearson situation, is there video? Have you seen video if it exists? And if it exists, will you release it to the press? The other question I had is, we're talking about being at the point where people are going to be sleeping outside due to the migrant situation. What measures is the city taking to prepare for that, to aid people in that situation? And are they any different than what the city would typically do to address, people sleeping outside?
That's a good question.
Given them
That's a good question. First, the video. I haven't seen any video, and if there are videos or anything else, we're going to follow normal procedures about releasing information. I'm sure the council would go through whatever those procedures are, but I have not seen any. And Mike, that's a great question, because this is new territory for us. So what I have to do, I have to manage it. I have to manage it in a way that we don't see what's happening in other cities, where you're seeing tent cities pop up all over the place. So we're going to have to manage a terrible situation. My goal, my pecking order is we have to do everything possible for children and families not to sleep on the street. That's the top line goal that I have. And then the next goal is that when we reach that point, we need to manage it that is not a citywide visual state of chaos. We have to sort of localize it as much as possible. We have to make sure that people have some type of restroom facilities, some type of shower network. So we're going to have, this is like brand new. I've been having a series of meetings with those who manage this in other countries on how do you not deal with the sanitary issues that comes with it. But this is new ground. The chief of staff and I were on a call yesterday with those who do this in other countries to figure out what we can do to manage this the best way possible.
Keep moving it. Thank you so much. I have two quick questions.
Yes.
First, for the Corporation Council, it sounds like you suggested that the judge ordered the parties into mediation. I was in the room. It didn't sound to me like he was ordering you. Is this mediation voluntary on the city's part? And if not, what is there to negotiate? And then for you, Mr. Mayor, just following up on the last question, you're talking about localizing it. What do you mean by that? And is there any thought being given, instead of turning these people potentially out into the street and having them remain in New York, is there any thought in moving them someplace else?
Like outside the city? Mm-hmm. So I'll answer it, and then you could speak with the court counsel. I mean, with my chief counsel.
You want to go first?
Whichever.
Go ahead.
Lisa could go first. She's a feisty attorney.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I just want to correct that my title is Chief Counsel to the Mayor and City Hall, but with all due respect to the Corp Counsel of the city, who's Judge Sylvia Hines-Radix. And thank you for the question. All the state, the city, and the Legal Aid Society agreed voluntarily. They're participating voluntarily in the mediations that the judge desired to occur this week. So that's the answer to the question.
So then what in your view, what is negotiable under the circumstances, since you're out of room and you're at this breaking point?
You know what, the process as designed by the court is supposed to be a confidential mediation that does not occur on the public record, and so I can't speak to that.
I think, however, what I would add is that what we're talking about is how we navigate this humanitarian crisis under a doctrine that was not designed for it, right? That's specifically the issue, and we have been having those conversations and meet and confers over the past few months, and those will continue, and these mediation sessions will just include the court.
So your question about local, we're going to have to find large spaces. The chief of staff and her team, they have been doing an analysis, and that's part of what Tim has been doing to see where these large spaces exist throughout the city, and try to create a control environment to the best of our ability. Yeah, outdoor spaces, whatever space we can find. You know, when you run out of space, whatever space we could find, we're going to use, and we want to do it as humane as possible.
Okay, guys, we gotta keep.
Oh, no, this is an important
I
question.
just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
That sounds like something new that I haven't heard you say before.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like I have not heard you say that before, unless I'm wrong.
Right.
Are you saying that that's something other than an outdoor, like, tent or herc, like we've seen Randall's Island, or, other sort of outdoor? Is it different from that?
Yeah, well, what the chief of staff is doing right now is, by using outdoor spaces, we are expanding the globe. We're not waiting until the day of. We're expanding the globe, and we are tapping into international people, and we're finding out what are our options. Because believe it or not, tents are costly also. Tents are costly. Everything is costly. So what we're dealing with right now is a depletion of resources that is going to threaten our ability to provide the basic services to New Yorkers. And I can't allow that to happen. I can't allow the basic services to taxpayers, New Yorkers, to be depleted at the state, that I cannot provide those services. And so whatever we can do to find that balance, we're going to do. And I cannot say it. I can't make it any clearer. This is going to hurt, and it's not going to be pretty.
And I would just add, Melissa, the mayor said this multiple times, all options are on the table. So again, all options are on the table. And to the point that you said of, would we consider transferring people outside of New York? Yes, that's why we have a reticketing center. That's what we've been doing since the first HERC. We've been trying to connect people to the next step on their journey. So we do that every single day.
Let me just add this piece. As the chief of staff said and the mayor said, it's imperative that the federal government and the state put in place a decompression strategy. We are mitigating a national crisis, and it is totally unfair to New York City, and we need help. So the mayor has been clear. The press, you keep asking us the same questions repeatedly, and we get it. But these questions are better suited for the federal government and the state. We need help, and you can use your voice to help us.
On a similar topic, actually, I think Deputy Mayor Williams-Isom, you mentioned earlier the state's resettlement program. I think I heard you say that 25 families have been resettled. That's correct?
I think I said 20.
20, okay. Why is that number not higher? Is it procedural, eligibility issues? Is it a lack of interest in migrant families moving outside the city? And what more do you need to see from the state to get that number higher, if that is part of the issue?
Yeah, I think there's so many things. I love the way the mayor said that our jobs are to fix problems, and I think that there will be solutions to this. I think the idea about resettling families throughout the state is an excellent idea. I think they've hit some obstacles, whether it's about housing stock, whether it's about, I think they're guaranteeing that they'll pay people's rent for a year. Maybe that should be more. I think that everything should be on the table in the way that we do it too, to figure out what do I need, how do I get people connected. We have over 100, I don't know the exact number, of people that we've referred to them. It's in the hundreds now. So it's not about not having families that have their work authorization or have done their paperwork on the way. It's really about how many units they have available. I think there's about 75 units that they have available right now, but again, we're waiting for furniture or we're waiting for other things. And I might be like, let's put an air mattress in there and let's get this done. Somehow people don't have the same sense of urgency, I think, that we do, because if it was me, I would be like, all right, what do we need to do? What do landlords need? And how do we get kids up there so that they can get settled?
And that's a very important point that you just made, DM. Basically, I think it's because of we have successfully kept this out of the eyes of New Yorkers. There has not been the same level of urgency. And this is an urgent point. And, people are treating this like a policy and not urgency. This is an urgent moment that we're in. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Finish up. We did once a week. We take 4 more questions. So whatever the 4, since we do only one. Yeah, hold on.
I wanted to ask you, I guess now since I have a fork.
Yeah, you didn't have the floor. Just that English likes you.
Is Tim Pearson exempt from the usual city rules of not identifying himself at a shelter? And then additionally, you...
I'm sorry, I'm saying
Is
it
Tim
again.
Pearson exempt from the city rules of identifying yourself at a shelter? And secondly, I know you said you're going to give away your co-op. Last week you said you're keeping it. What's your plan for the co-op? Why did you decide to keep it? Your Brooklyn co-op.
Okay, first, Tim Pearson, we like to standardize the rules, and if there are not clarity in rules, this team is good at going back to the table, doing analysis. Okay, what went wrong? What can we do better? We're constantly figuring out what we can do better. And if after the review is done, if the determination is made, there's some rule we need to put in place to give clarity, we're going to do that. And talking about my co-op, I don't know if you realize it, but Prospect Heights is now a hot place to own property. And so I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do with my personal property that I announced on my COIB, and I follow all the rules. This is my property. I made great investments in Bed-Stuy. I moved into areas where a lot of folks didn't want to move in. You know, I made areas safe on that block. I made areas safe on Lafayette Avenue. Many folks did not want to come in. I made it safe, and now everyone is enjoying the great work that I've done. So if I wanna hold on to my apartment, it's reported. I say what it is, and I'll make up my mind on how I'm gonna deal with my finances. You know, some of you thought I lived in Jersey. You know, so yeah. So you know, I'm making smart decisions.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. So regarding Tim Pearson,
Yes.
nearly a dozen witnesses signed statements with their names saying that he reacted to an existing rule, one that requires you show your ID to enter a migrant shelter, that he responded violently. Will there be consequences for him if whatever investigation it is you're conducting affirms the statements of these people who have no apparent reason to lie?
Well, first of all, I've known Tim Pearson for over 30-something years, and I've never witnessed him displaying, a violent action. He's a professional, and the review would determine if we have to do something different in how our procedures are done. Let the review take his job.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for taking the question. On Thursday, the 3-year-old dangerous vehicle abatement program expires. It predates your administration, obviously, but that was a tool, according to the DOT, a flawed tool, but nonetheless a tool to rein in drivers who had more than 15 camera-issued speeding tickets in any 12-month period. So on Thursday it expires, depriving the city of that tool. And I'm wondering if the administration, in working with the council or on its own, has a plan to give the DOT and the sheriff's office a new tool or update the existing tool to rein in reckless driving.
Yeah, I'm not aware that it expired. I thought it was good. I think it was Brad that put it in place. I was standing next to him when he made that announcement. I think we made it on 9th Street and 5th Avenue after those children were killed. I thought it was a good tool. You tell me about that.
Yes, hi. As DOT's noted for the record that it has been a flawed tool and it has been difficult to actually get cars off the road using it. What we will do is what we've done last year and really look to the advocacy world for support is go to the state and get better restrictions and better enforcement tools through state DMV on the registrations and licenses of those who repeatedly run red lights, repeatedly get speed camera violations. We've proven through camera enforcement how well it works not only in catching reckless driving, but in recidivism, reducing those that will repeat that kind of offensive behavior. But for the reckless group that is small but potent, we need sharper tools. And that's where the state can be an incredible partner to give us the tools that allow us to take away the licenses, take away the registrations, and ultimately the vehicles that are the weapon that are causing the fatalities.
These reckless drivers, speeders, they are a part of this small number, but they are the problem that we are seeing. And so we would definitely want a tool that will allow us to zero in on them. If we could get some of these riders off the road, you'll see a drastic change. You know, some of them are repeated offenders. When I was in the state, I went after the hit and runs because many of them would rather flee than stay and deal with the accident. and we were not investigating them enough. But we want these reckless drivers off the road. Yeah, go ahead. Let him go ahead.
Tools. We reported today that 3 DOT asphalt trucks exploded earlier this year as a result of using a product called Cutback. It's a highly flammable asphalt product that a lot of cities, including cold weather cities, have already phased out. So will you look into possibly phasing out the use of Cutback, this very dangerous flammable material?
What is it? Cutback is a material? Is a chemical?
It's mixed with kerosene or another petroleum product to stick to the roads better. But other cities have phased it out, and it has caused some problems.
So we're an unusual city when it comes to asphalt. We're one of the few places where we make our own asphalt, and 40% of the asphalt that is used on city streets is recycled asphalt. It's the asphalt that we rip up. We take to our asphalt plant, one in Queens and one in Brooklyn, and we're continuously looking to improve that mix. It's like cooking. What's the right recipe? So we'll certainly, safety is our #1 priority, and so we certainly want to modify the recipe that we're using for our asphalt so it's durable, it's resilient, but #1, it's safe, especially for the workers.
So if I'm allowed, Fabian, before we end, can I do a mayor's choice person reporter?
Oh my God.
And today, because of
You're
your
the mayor.
lovely socks, I'm going to pick you, Nolan.
Where'd you get those socks, Nolan?
I'll take
Be
them off.
prepared. Be prepared next time.
If I could get a couple of clarification questions. First of all, you said outdoor spaces. Does that mean parks? What do you mean when you say people could end up in outdoor spaces?
I think.
And did you ever get your liaison from the Biden administration?
My
Liaison.
I think.
That was a simple answer.
I think Fabian said it best. Everything is on the table.
And more broadly speaking, you
Yes.
had a suggestion earlier about hosting a roundtable. The remarks seem to come from a place of deep frustration. They seem to be sort of deeply sarcastic. Like you guys
No.
a team of folks trying to figure this out, and there's a bunch of wise guys over there who think they can do a better job.
No,
So
I'm glad
let
you
them have
raised
at
that.
it.
I'm glad you raised
feel
that.
frustrated?
Yeah, there's no sarcasm at all in what I was saying. I am at the point that we're on the verge of what are we going to do with children and families. And I am willing to sit down with anyone that can give us an idea. Anyone. If people who always criticize me, who don't dislike me, who will never invite me to a birthday party, or let's put all that to the side. How are we going to prevent our city from experiencing this? And so if people have good ideas that are executable, because anyone can say, give everyone a FEPS voucher. That's not executable. Anyone can say, okay, the answer to this immediate problem is to build more housing. That's going to take 2-3 years. That's not executable. If the question is, here's the problem we have in face on us right now. What do we do right now? That is where we're not getting the answers from. And Deputy Mayor Williams Isom, the Chief of Staff, Ingrid, Sheena, they have been throwing it out to everyone. We know the long-term stuff that everybody say, and we're moving towards that with our housing plan. But right now, what do we do right now with 2,500 to 4,000 people coming here a week, coming faster than leaving? That's the question that we need to answer. And Nolan, I don't, people may have the answer, so I want to get in the room personally and sit in a room with them around the table and say, here's the problem that we have. Do y'all have something for right now that we can solve it?
A year and a half in, that's the big
Hold on, let Nolan pick. This was my pick.
A year and a half into this, Mr. Mayor, what do you think is the biggest thing you've learned? Is there anything you'd like to do over?
I would say that the biggest, I should have gone to South America earlier. I went to the border and I viewed what was happening at the border in El Paso, but I wish I would have gone to South America earlier and saw what was happening at the Darien Gap, sat down with Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico, I think that I could have picked up some more. I learned a lot from being down there. And I think if I would have gone down earlier, I would have picked up more. We learned a lot from El Paso with Commissioner Castro, but you had to go in there to see what we are facing. I think that is one area I would look at differently. But one plus that I'm clear on, the best thing that ever happened to us on this crisis was DM and Williams Isom. What she has done. I tell the team all the time, keep a journal, but her book is going to be a bestseller. What she has done, I don't know how the heck she's been able to do this night after night after night, where she calls, we got 2,500 people here, and we don't know where we're going to put them. And then in the morning, she resolved the crisis. This is a great New Yorker, and we're all blessed for having her. And she brings that compassion into this. And, I don't know, you're not going to do it now because that's the nature of where we are. But later, you guys are going to be looking over what this woman did and realize that the humanitarian crisis that other people would have run away from, she stood and weathered that. And I thank her every night for that. Thank you.
That's right.